I want to introduce Professor Paul Kroll. Paul was a colleague of Elling's. He was one of the ones who received several, if not many, of Elling's late-night phone calls that many people know about because of Elling's idiosyncrasies. But Paul received his doctorate at University of Michigan, starting to use it. And then since 1980 has been a professor at University of Colorado Boulder. Paul has just become a very dear friend of the Elling Eide Center in so many different ways. And what is about to happen is just an incredible moment in the history of the Eide Center. It is a one-of-a-kind, rare book that is being donated to us by Professor Kroll, and I am just thrilled to introduce Professor Paul Kroll and for what is happening. Thank you.
Let me explain what this is. You can see the shape it's in. I will be speaking shortly about dictionaries, and you'll hear more about the Mathews dictionary, which is what this is, published in 1931. But for many years, well, until very recently, it was the standard Chinese English dictionary for scholars, despite many inadequacies. And both Edward Schafer and Elling Eide were users and critics of the dictionary. And Edward Schafer, who was a teacher of Anne, as mentioned, and also of Professor Cass, not of me, I was not a student of Schafer, I was a friend. Schafer, after getting his degree, his PhD from Berkeley in the late 40s, he was already writing in his dictionary, making notes. Many people think of dictionaries as sacred texts, not to be, only to be reverenced and not to be written in. That was not Schafer's way. Schafer, those of you who know his works know he was the great scholar of Tang culture and literature, especially something that Elling Eide also was a specialist in. And Schafer was, the word he liked to use most for himself was a philologist. He was a student of texts, he was a student of textual history and context, but he was also what that word means literally. He was a philologist, he was a lover of words. And this dictionary bears the evidence of many years of his writing addenda and notes to various entries in the dictionary, things that he found to be better than what was here already. It was, I think others, Anne and Vicki can speak about this better than I, but I think it became kind of an icon for many people. They knew about Schafer's Mathews and thought all the answers really were in here in this version. I should say something about how it came to me only very recently, and that you can see the back was broken years ago and the pages are falling out from much use. I think it was in the late, as I understand it, in the late 60s that Schafer asked one of his students to transfer everything that was in this original copy into a new edition, into a newly bought edition of the Mathews dictionary that he continued to use thereafter. So what happened to this one? It went to one of his students named Judith Volz. Judy was a scholar of especially Chinese religion, Taoism, and a student of Schafer's. she had it then for maybe 50 years, almost 50 years. And she passed away several years ago and has been in the keeping of her husband, William Boltz, since then, who was himself a scholar of early China. Last April in Boulder, there was a celebration for my 70th birthday, and William Boltz, who was there, presented this to me at the time, knowing my friendship and affection for Ed Schafer and my appreciation of his work. Now the question became, what would I do with it? And as the years roll on, I'm taking stock of what happens later, I hope later rather than sooner. And my own library will eventually go, all of it, to the Institute for Advanced Study at Princeton. But I knew that if this were sent eventually also, they would look at it, they'd say there are plenty of other later editions of Mathews Dictionary that haven't been written in, haven't been defaced, and where the pages aren't falling apart, and so they would have just thrown it out in the trash. I certainly did not want that to happen, because this is, as Harold said to me earlier today, this is really an artifact of sinological history, and I think, especially since given Schafer's and Ide's joint concern for the Tang Dynasty and their love of books and language, I could think of no better place for this to be permanently held than the Elling Eide Center, especially with Anne here overseeing things. So I'm happy here today to make this presentation to Harold.
Goosebumps right now. Chills running up and down my spine.
It's the air conditioning.
I am humbled, and we are honored to receive this gift from you, Paul. I can't thank you enough. It is wonderful, and please come up, because you, of all people, can appreciate this and have been tutoring me on why I should appreciate it. We are thrilled, and I think I can speak for Anne that she's probably just giddy with delight also. And this will be held in the Elling Eide Center forever. Thank you.